my beat laboratory, where I've been spending too much time over the past month or two. So as promised, an update on when the single's coming out. It's coming out this coming Wednesday, 8/26. And I'm super excited about it. It's called What is a Dream? And I also wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of a backstory behind it since it's weirdly specific. So yeah, a little bit about the song. I've been helping take care of my grandmother who's got Alzheimer's. And anyway, I'm sitting there writing on my iPad and I am on the couch scrolling through probably Instagram, and I come across a Joe Rogan clip where he's interviewing Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, and it oddly resonated with me, especially the terms they were using. It was a way I felt my whole life. So check out the clip here, and then I'll elaborate more on it.
This concept of things just sort of falling into place, I'm a big believer in that too.
Yeah.
What is that though? Is that you getting out of your own way? Like what is that? Isn't
that 70% of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say it's 70% maintenance of what can I do to do my part to stay out of the way. And then the other part, I always think of it as like this little super thin, invisible thread, but you can feel the tug, and you have to be really gentle, and you have to pause when agitated, and you have to go for it when you're going to, like, there's four walls in here, which one has the map behind it? It's that one. And you knock down the wall and it's there,
Yeah, what is that though? That's a
synchronicity.
Yeah,
intuition.
But labeling it is very dangerous because it's so filled with woo.
Yeah.
So it's there's so many people that are hucksters that have like made a career out of sort of like labeling it and defining it or teaching you how to get to it.
It's great because it's the commodity that you can't capitalize on, and yet if you don't show proof of its existence, you shouldn't even be qualified to speak on it. I don't know.
Right.
It's the big I don't know.
But when it happens, whether it happens with love or with friendship or with a career or with a path you're taking, you just know there's a smile. There's an inner smile like, yeah, this is it.
Well put.
I found it. This is it. I'm supposed to be doing this. Here we go. Here we go.
So I don't know if that clip resonates with you like it resonated with me, but some of the terms they were using, like Robert Downey Jr. talking about the invisible thread, felt insanely familiar to me, even though I've never heard anyone speak of it like that. The closest thing it makes me think of is like in Hercules, where the two or three, witches in the underworld are about to cut the thread of life that represents someone's, lifespan and fate. Greek philosophers, I think particularly the Stoics were the first ones to talk about that we are merely the playthings of the gods and our fates are predetermined, and we're kind of just conscious observers of our own destiny, but not actually actors in it. That concept still has a ton of weight today. Just given modern science, it's unclear whether quantum randomness plays enough of a role or really just resolves itself to deterministic noise when it comes to like our thoughts and decision making. So it's very reasonable to not believe in free will, actually, and there are plenty of Christians, and I might be one of them. There's sort of a middle ground called compatibilism, but yeah, plenty of theists of any kind who believe that that's perfectly possible, and actually makes way more sense if you consider an omnipotent and omniscient, all-knowing and foreknowing entity. It seems logically impossible that we would not be kind of predetermined playthings, to put it lightly. So anyway, weighing them talking about that brought up feelings and thoughts I've had as I've compared that feeling, that tug of destiny with my own Christianity. Over the years, we've heard a lot of prosperity preachers weave in the dream as like the maximal form of prosperity preaching. But that's the most seductive and refined because a dream isn't really material. It's so woven into our nature that a lot of people will go so far as to say that it's from God. And on some level, it can't help but be from God. This is if you're in a Christian worldview, of course, but God having predetermined us and knowing how we would be, it makes utter sense that if we have this core belief at the center of us, this main driver, and that can be many things for many different people, but for a lot of people it is like say a career or just a core achievement that's like the goal of their life. It's hard to ignore that, but at the same time it's also difficult to necessarily justify that with the gospel, because as we see with the initial apostles, I mean, they all experienced immense suffering, and if you're comparing it to the rest of the prosperity doctrine, immense poverty, immense pain, things that don't line up. So the idea of having this ethereal, fun self-actualization experiment that you're trying to run with your life, and comparing that to the idea of spreading the gospel and being subservient to Christ and being conformed to the image of Christ and his will and the desires of your heart becoming his desires, they're really quite different. And anyways, so this whole song is kind of ruminating on that line, because as someone who has struggled with depression, honestly, throughout my entire life, the idea of potentially foregoing my dream, which has always been, vaguely put to be a professional musician, and only within this last year could I finally say that I had really checked all the boxes, like all my childhood boxes, which is a wild experience to have if you've never had it. I actually wrote another song that may or may not get released called Sore Winter, which is a very, at first, egotistical title, but really what it's about is, if you do have the fortune or perhaps misfortune of achieving your dreams, everything that you've held dear as this precious, golden, glowing nugget from the time you were a kid, if you actually achieve those things and still have hopefully 2/3 of your life left to live, it's an intriguing experience to go through. And I think most commonly we see that with professional athletes, how much they can struggle with the retirement phase, because it's like, man, I mean, I just did everything I was designed to, I was greatest at. I mean, all odds are I will never be as good at that one thing I just finished as anything else in my entire life. Therefore, how do I live? So what is a dream is sort of getting at that concept and not riding the fence, but definitely not declaring either side the winner, because I think, but the possible loophole in this, especially for the Christian, is that if you're talking about your capital D dream, you really might be talking about your gift or gifts, not necessarily in the spiritual gift sense that Paul talks about, but you're talking about the way God made you very intimately and inextricably, perhaps. So the idea of unnecessarily sacrificing or violating your own nature for Christ might be needlessly ascetic. But perhaps the best example, and this isn't biblical at all, but in the movie Chariots of Fire, my dad, I actually haven't seen the movie, but he's told me about this all the time, just about how the guy is from a family of missionaries, and his family wants him to go to China to be a missionary, and yet he's an Olympic runner, and he understands that running isn't spreading the gospel or anything. Apparently he has this line where he says, but I feel God's pleasure when I run, something like that. It's hard to ignore that feeling when you do experience it, when you feel like, wow, I'm doing the exact thing I am meant to do. Even though I can't put it into words and I can't find it in a scripture to justify it specifically for me, I just know that I know that I know. And that's such a dangerous line to take, especially for anybody with a reformed theology that's based off scripture and scripture alone. I mean, you really have to cross-reference this stuff to make sure you're not getting off base and find scriptural context for it. But nonetheless, it's about as real as a feeling can get. So that is, in a nutshell, probably an overly long one, much longer than the song. It's what is a dream will be not discussing, but focused on, and for all my, non-believing friends and, atheists, whatever, hopefully there's something musically in there that you can still appreciate if you give it a listen. Totally understand if you don't want to, having heard this needlessly long discourse about it. Discourse, it's not a discourse, it's a monologue. Hopefully there's something in there for you that you can appreciate. If not, you never have to listen again. Yeah, that's all for What is a Dream. And I will have future updates very soon of what else I'm planning to do after I release a single. Probably putting the album, the rest of those songs, on hold for a little bit in favor of a new project where I can put more quickly that I'm really excited about. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for watching and listening. Bye.